How much narc knowledge should I obtain? This is a question that you may ask yourself with regard to trying to understand what has happened to you. The most important thing with regard to answering this is ensuring that you have the right knowledge. There is a plethora of information about narcissism that is available to you. Books, blogs, and of course on YouTube. A lot of it is rubbish. The information is inaccurate, misleading, skewed, telling you what you want to hear rather than what you should hear. Telling you things about how you can go toe-to-toe, for instance, with the narcissist and win when you cannot, and you ought not to do. And unfortunately, certain videos, because they cater to the emotional thinking that people are not aware of, become popular and become a mainstay of particular advice which is misleading and problematic and ought to be entirely avoided. Accordingly, with regard to the creation of your own information about narcissism, it's important that you access the right information, the right knowledge. Naturally, because you're accessing my work, you've already achieved that. Well done, and thank you. But it is important to keep this in mind to avoid getting drawn into the receipt of information from unreliable sources, from ones that don't understand narcissism, from ones that are well-intentioned but only give you a very narrow point of view, from others which are actually mid-range narcissists doing it all for their own purposes without actually conveying you the reality of what you're dealing with. Individuals who think that they're hurt victims, that go into a tirade and just essentially talk about doing down the narcissist rather than providing you with any constructive, useful information. The knowledge that you acquire must come from the correct source. That is axiomatic, hugely important. But then you may wonder to yourself, am I actually causing a problem for me by diving into the library of knowledge that exists with regard to narcissism? Well, if you're accessing the wrong information, the short answer to that is yes, because it's not giving you the answers that you ought to receive. It's not telling you the appropriate way of dealing with the situation. And therefore, if you're accessing the wrong information, then you must stop. Want to know if you're accessing the wrong information? It's quite simple. Talk to me about it and I'll tell you. Alternatively, keep accessing my information and you know that you're accessing the right information for you with regard to understanding about narcissism. But what then if you say to yourself, well, that's all very well, HG, and I appreciate the knowledge that you provide to me, but I think that if I keep accessing your material, then it triggers me. Am I not keeping my emotional thinking alive by continuing to think about the narcissist? Well, first of all, the nature of who I am and the nature of my material will have a triggering effect upon some people. However, it's fairly obvious from what I am, and therefore you come to my work knowing these are the words, explanations and insight from a narcissistic psychopath. I make that very clear from the beginning. I don't hide what I am, and therefore you are given complete and fair warning. At that point, nobody's going to make you read or listen. You don't have to. It would be beneficial for you, but if you don't have the stomach for it, and some people don't, I have no issue with that. You can go elsewhere. You are not forced to access my material. But many people get past that initial discomfort, if any, of what I am. Those that perhaps find my voice a little creepy, although they are in the minority compared to those who enjoy my stentorian tones. Instead, people recognize the value of what is provided. But then they may ask themselves, okay, I'm able to deal with the triggering effect, or it hasn't had that, but what about remaining, drinking of this knowledge? Is this not keeping me stuck? No, that is your emotional thinking trying to con you. You see, your emotional thinking doesn't want you to listen to me. It doesn't want you reading my work. It doesn't want you applying the knowledge and the logic that I provide to you. When I tell you that the appropriate way of dealing with the narcissist is to obey the first golden rule of freedom, which is once you know, you go, you get out and you stay out, that emotional thinking says, oh, that's just HG being grand, telling you that narcissists can't be defeated and to run away from them. Don't listen to him. You can take on the narcissist, you can bop him on the nose and deal with him. No. I don't tell you these things out of grandiosity, I tell you them out of accuracy, because accuracy is important with regard to enabling you to understand how we behave and what will happen. You get the win by getting the right information. I get the win by the extension of my legacy as a consequence of you applying this right information, realizing it works, commenting as such, and telling other people. Your emotional thinking will rise as a consequence of listening to me. That is obvious. I'm talking about narcissism. It'll make you think about your narcissist. But this is the medicine, and the slight increase in emotional thinking that you will experience is a slight side effect. And you need this medicine in order to get yourself to a healthy position of removing the narcissist from your life and achieving zero impact. If, for instance, you're obtaining the information from a source which isn't providing you with the right information, you're taking the wrong medicine. You will not get the desired outcome, and along the way, you're exposing yourself to difficulties, not least in terms of heightening your emotional thinking for no good reason. If you think to yourself, maybe I should stop listening, because this is bringing back thoughts of the narcissist, that is your emotional thinking trying to con you. That is your emotional thinking trying to have another go to get you stop listening to logic. You don't want to go there. It's akin to walking to the library of my materials, and in accordance with that, it wants to stop you. Emotional thinking puts its arm across the entrance of the library. Oh, you don't want to go in there. Oh, you don't want to listen to Tudor. What does he know? Oh, he's just all grandiose, Mr. Listen to Me narcissist. Come over here and listen to this instead. And your emotional thinking wants to take you away from it, to take you to places when you hear the things which you think make sense but actually don't, because you're being misled. You can never have enough information about narcissism, so long as it's the right information. So long as it is information which is constructive, allows you to understand, and enables you to achieve no contact and reduce your emotional thinking, so that you stay away from the narcissist and achieve zero impact. At that point, you may find the whole concept of narcissism fascinating from an academic point of view, an intellectual pursuit. You've resolved the issues with the current narcissist, you're staying away from other ones, but you're still fascinated in the story, for instance, of who I am, how I came to be, or narcissists in general. What creates us? Why do we act in these ways? With your emotional thinking reduced, you've created lots of room for logic to prevail, and therefore there is no harm in you continuing to engage in the topic, to understand it, to really go down the rabbit hole with it, because again, you're accessing the right information at the right time and further protecting yourself. And I fully endorse you engaging in gathering as much right information about narcissism as you possibly can. Do not be misled into thinking that accessing information, the right information about narcissism, you can somehow get too much. You can't. If you go and talk with your friends about narcissism and they don't understand it, you're breaching no contact, because you'll be talking about the narcissist. You're also probably boring the arse off your friends, because they've heard these stories so many times, and even as they listen patiently and try to be well-intentioned with their answers, they can't give you the answers. They don't understand narcissism. So all you've done is embrace narcissism, talk about the narcissist, increase your emotional thinking, possibly irritate your friends, and gain no insight or valuable information. You'll just find yourself asking the same questions, getting the same non-answers, and going around in circles. That embracing of narcissism is counterproductive. Instead, what you ought to be doing is learning as much as you can through my work, through my videos, through my books, through what is provided in the Knowledge Vault, and consulting with me where appropriate. And that will create a huge armoury of information for you. Your emotional thinking will descend. making room for you to apply all of this logic. And whenever you might hear that small voice saying, but isn't this keeping you in the loop? Remember, that is your emotional thinking trying to trick you. That is your emotional thinking trying to take you away from logic, trying to take you away from something which helps you so that you stop doing it, so that the emotional thinking can increase, so that you keep thinking about the narcissist in an unconstructive way. There is no doubt that by engaging with my work, you will think about your narcissist. That is to be expected. But alongside that, you are getting a huge slab of logical information which assists you in driving down, ultimately, that emotional thinking. It is a slight increase for a much larger gain, and you must continue to do it. So fill your boots with my knowledge. Fill your mind with this information. Assess it, analyze it, apply it. Ask me questions. I answer as many as I possibly can. Use the Ask HG series. Consult with me. And all of this will enable you to fill up on Narc knowledge, but the right Narc knowledge, so that you continue your march to freedom and achieve zero impact. I'm HG Tudor. Thank you for listening.